I just got my Sony a7 IV, and today I just kind of wanted to sit down and set it up for you guys, show you what settings I use for photography and videography to get the best possible photos and videos that this camera can offer. So let's just get right into it. So once you get your camera out of the box, charge the batteries and stuff, you're gonna wanna click the menu button in the top left-hand corner. And from there, you're gonna see my menu setting. This is more of just like a customization page, but I don't really mess with anything in this, so let's just move on. So next, you're going to scroll down to the camera icon, and here you're gonna see a bunch of options, but we will just start from the top. So on image quality, you see it's selected as JPEG, but we're actually gonna be wanting to shoot in RAW. So in order to change that, we're going to go down to image quality settings and just click on that, select RAW, and you can see there's options. I choose just RAW. So under RAW file type, when you click on that, it's going to give you a few options: uncompressed, lossless comp, or compressed. And I generally shoot in compressed. I have a video where I talk about uncompressed and compressed and the difference between those two in a different video. So if you want to go check that out, feel free to. But uncompressed is basically going to be a larger file and compressed is going to be a smaller file. And for what I do, I don't need these crazy big files for any reason. So I typically just shoot compressed. Then we go down to aspect ratio, and aspect ratio is basically just going to decide what ratio you want your photos and videos to be in. I personally just do 3:2. That works perfect for me. And next we're going to get into some video settings. So under video file format, you can see it's selected XAVCS HD. And in order to get the best quality video on this camera, you're going to want to select XAVCS 4K, and then go down to movie settings. And what this is going to be is this is going to be your file size and your frame rate. My frame rate, I personally like to shoot in 30 frames per second, but I do shoot in 60 frames per second. And it was a big reason why I actually bought this camera, was to shoot in 60 frames a second in 4K, because the a7 III didn't offer that. So that was a big reason why I upgraded. But I only do that when I'm actually going to be shooting slow motion, or know that I'm going to be shooting something that I will want to slow down later. So that's the only time that I shoot in 60. Otherwise, I shoot in 30. And then next, we'll go down to record settings. And this is actually going to be your file size as well as your image quality. The best quality on this camera is 140M 10-bit, but because this camera already does so good and the 4K looks so great, I typically just do 100M at 8-bit, and that gives me still really amazing quality video. But again, like if you're looking for the best of the best, that 140 10-bit is going to be the best quality that this camera does. I just prefer not to use it because the file sizes get really big really fast, and it just gets kind of obnoxious to deal with file sizes that big. APS-C shooting, it's basically when you're using crop sensor lenses on a full frame camera. It allows you to kind of switch back and forth between those two things. I think that's the best way I can describe it here without going way too much into detail. But if you have any questions about that, just leave them in the comments below. I don't really do anything with long exposure noise reduction. I just have it turned on just in case I do end up shooting long exposures. And then the rest of this page, I don't really mess with, but you can check out some of the settings that just came with the camera, but I don't really change anything like that. Media, this is going to be for your memory card, and obviously format is formatting your memory card. You can change to your first slot to be photos and your second slot to be videos, just to keep it easy for you while you're working. But personally, I don't really do that. I just like to have everything on one card. Next thing is file. I don't really change anything in that. Shooting mode, again, I don't really change anything here. USB streaming, I don't really change anything here. This is for streaming if you were to plug it into your computer or something. Drive mode, again, I don't really change anything there. And shutter and silent, that's if you want to shoot silent mode. So for example, sometimes when I'm doing a wedding and it's kind of a closed ceremony in a church, I like to shoot in silent mode so the shutter isn't distracting all the people who are coming to see the wedding. I've been to some weddings like that where photographers are just like off in the side in like a church. It's just like and it's, for me, as a photographer, maybe it's just me because I recognize that kind of stuff, but for me, that gets kind of obnoxious. So that's what you can do on this page. Image stabilization, I would always make sure your steady shot is on. This is gonna give you the best looking video. That's just gonna allow your camera to kind of smooth the video out in camera, so while you're shooting. Yeah, and then zoom, I don't really change anything. Grid lines, I do like to turn my 3x2 grid lines on, and that's just because it helps me frame my compositions a little bit better. better. And then especially when doing video, it helps me to just like make sure I'm getting everything I need to in the shot, and the focal point is very clear in each shot that I am actually taking. So next we're gonna go down to exposure/color, and that's gonna be this pink icon. This I usually change while I'm actually shooting. What's nice about this is you can set an ISO range limit. So if you're shooting in auto mode, you can actually make it so your camera won't go above a certain ISO while in auto mode. So I think that's pretty cool. Exposure comp, I don't really do anything with that. Metering, I don't really do a ton with that. Flash mode, I don't shoot flash photography. I never have, and I don't think I ever will, so I don't really do anything with that. White balance, I always just kind of set to auto. I think these cameras, Sony for example, does a fantastic job just doing white balance automatically in camera. So I never really mess with anything like that. The color tones, so this camera actually has some of the best colors that any Sony camera that I've ever used has. And it's actually one of the reasons that I bought this camera, because of how amazing the colors look just straight out of camera raw. So I don't really change anything in this as far as like creative look, the D-Range optimizer. I don't really do anything with that. I have done a little bit with picture profiles. I don't tend to do that often, but if you guys are interested, just leave a comment down below and I will actually make a video going way more into depth about picture profiles and what they mean and kind of how they work and how you can use them to your advantage to get really good looking photos and videos. For sake of time, I'm not really gonna go into that here, but again, just let me know if you wanna hear more about those. Next, we have the zebra display, and I actually really like the zebra display. It basically just allows you to see which things in your frame are overexposed. And so I do kind of like to use that just in case, just kind of as a backup to my eyesight. So it's just another kind of backup mechanism to make sure you're getting the right settings in camera while you're out on a shoot. Next down on the list, we are going to go down to the autofocus manual focus tab. It's this purple tab. Again, this is like something that I would change while on the shoot. So I wouldn't really change it from manual focus to autofocus in the settings. The rest of this stuff I keep the same. I don't really mess with any of this stuff. The eye autofocus, this was a big thing that I was actually really excited about this camera, is that it autofocuses on eyes, which I think is really cool, and it's a really good feature for Sony to have, especially for portrait photographers and people like me who do wedding videos, where it will continuously track the eyes and stay focused on those while doing photos and videos. What's actually cool is you can select human, animal, or bird. I don't know, birds kind of seem like an animal to me, but maybe it has to do with the size of the eye or something, but kind of cool, kind of interesting, definitely pretty fancy. The rest of this stuff, I don't really change anything here. So next down is playback, and all this really is just giving you settings for when you go back and look at your photos and videos and just ease of use. And there's a couple other things in there that are a little bit more confusing, but as far as beginner setup, you don't really need those. So I would just totally skip that whole thing. And then the next one down is going to be your network connection, and I would skip that too. I never really connect it to Wi-Fi or anything. I usually just plug memory cards straight into my computer and just go from there. The next one down though is the big settings, and the only thing I would suggest changing on here is operation customization, or just operation customize. The only thing I customized here is just your custom keys. And the only custom key that I recommend everybody has is changing your wheel to ISO. So you're gonna go all the way down to the wheels and to number 4. And you can see which wheels there are, and just go to number 4 and click ISO. And so it's gonna be selected maybe something else on yours, but on number 4, just make sure it's selected for ISO, because what that's gonna do is your control wheel is now going to control the ISO. So when I spin this, it's going to change my ISO because I shoot all of my stuff in manual mode. So it saves me a ton of time while on the shoot and kind of when I'm running and gunning. You can customize the other wheels too. I haven't really found anything that is extremely helpful, but you absolutely can customize every single wheel, every single button on this camera. And that's another reason that I just absolutely love Sony, is you can make everything so personalized, and you can just make the camera work exactly how you want it to. So other than that, those are pretty much the only settings that I change when setting up my A7 IV. I almost said 3. When setting up my A7 IV, if you guys had any other questions, or if I didn't explain something good enough, like for example the picture profiles, just let me know if you want me to make a video explaining that a little bit more. Other than that, I really appreciate you guys checking out this video. It turns out like 98% of you who watch my channel aren't actually subscribed, so if you could do that, I would really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel here. I will see you guys in the next video. All right, peace.